Hey everybody, this is RandyMaBoB and welcome to the Dry Dock. Now, what is the Dry Dock, you ask? Well, the Dry Dock is where I come to you with my favorite ship builds that I'm currently running. Now, I'm going to kick off the Dry Dock with my Jutland build. It's no secret that I'm a big fan of the Jutland. It's one of my favorite ships, mainly the Monarch hull in general. If you're not sure what the Jutland is, it's the Jupiter Arms Heavy Dreadnought. It's got a lot of junk in its trunk. So, without further ado, I will get started and use fancy words sometimes. Anyways, these builds aren't necessarily the best builds. These are just builds that I've put in a lot of playtime in and refined them to my personal playstyle. I'll offer some different ideas on what I feel are good substitutions on the modules for the build, but overall I'm trying to stay true to the theme of the build itself. So, getting started on our primary slot, we got the Plasma Broadside. It's got a base damage of 12,000 with a 16-second cooldown and a 2,400 range. Now, what's important to note is the number of projectiles. This is what really separates Plasma Broadside from Ballistic Broadside. The damage bonus is only 3,000 more than what you'd get on the Ballistic, but it's delivered in bigger chunks. Whereas Ballistic fires 40 projectiles with the 9,000 damage, but it has a 10-second cooldown. So the main difference between these two is one is more spike and the other is more sustained DPS. In a drawn-out fight, Ballistic Broadside would end up winning out due to the fact it's just got more overall damage. Now, going into the missiles, we have, light missiles, flechette missiles, and the vulture missiles. I'm not really going to touch on the torpedoes today. Personally, I use the light missiles. They're a medium range, average damage with about a 40-second cooldown. It's well-rounded in my opinion. But there are also the flechette missiles, which run a 10,000 damage with a 2,400 meter range. It lines right up with your broadsides, which is great, and it delivers the damage quick, and it only has a 28-second cooldown. Now with the vulture missiles, they deliver 18,000 damage from 7,000 meters away with a 50-second cooldown. Vultures are really underrated. They take a while to get there, like a long while, but they deliver a lot of damage if all the missiles hit. I wouldn't dismiss them. You're just going to have to adapt with the time it takes for the damage to get there. Now with your perimeter slot, I love running with Armor Booster Pulse. Armor Booster Pulse gives you a 45% damage reduction during its duration for you and your allies within a 1,200 meter range. Now it's only got a 30-second cooldown, and as with all these modules, when we get to talking about the officer briefings, you'll understand the synergies about it. But 45% damage reduction is nothing to snuff at. Now with Stasis Pulse, it works great against your quicker targets, like your Vindictas or your Corvettes. It gives them a 90% movement speed reduction for 10 seconds, which is long enough for you to train a well-placed broadside on them and end them very quickly. Now going into your final module, we're going to be looking at Warp Jump. There are plenty of other modules you can slap in your fourth slot, but in the spirit of this build, we're going to be just focusing on Warp Jump. No substitutions for it. The main reason is you are essentially throwing Jutlands into the heart of the enemy team to try to just assassinate their tactical cruisers while gaining a foothold for your team to advance. You are, nice and fat in the ass. You can take a lot of damage, and if you manage your energy properly, you can dish out just as much as you're taking in. A lot of this comes down to your officer briefings. Now with our officer briefings, we run Retaliator is your communication slot. Now with Retaliator, anytime you take shield damage, as in anytime your shield is up and you would take damage, it reduces the module cooldowns. This is very powerful when you're running with lower cooldown modules because you're able to keep them online more often. They're going to be spending more active uptimes. Now, what really makes this shine is when we get into our engineering slot. And our engineering slot is the adrenaline shot. Now with adrenaline shot, the great thing about it is anytime you're getting healed, or if you're a healer, anytime you're healing, you receive energy. Now, the more energy you get, the more time you can keep your shields up. The more time you keep your shields up, the less time your modules spend on cooldown. So it really makes you a absolute beast on the battlefield if enemies are focusing on you. You're taking all that damage and essentially dishing it back out at the target of your choosing. Now, since we can get a lot of energy generation going, and sometimes we need a target dead now, that's why we utilize the Module Amour. Now, Module Amour increases module damages by 30%. So your plasma broadside and your light missiles, or your ballistic broadside, or whatever flavor missiles you get a 30% damage bonus when you have power to weapons. That's very powerful. Now, with your navigation slot, honestly, I've just been kind of sticking with slow and steady. I've already accepted the fact that I'm not going to win any races in my Jutland, and 10% of constant damage reduction can save your life. I decided to just run with slow and steady. Sometimes I like running with nerves of steel, but slow and steady just kind of takes the cake. Now, that's the whole build in a nutshell. Now, with the way that you run the build, if you're running it solo, just play aggressive. Take opportunities to go after either lone players, or just go right for the throat and go after the tactical cruisers. It's not as fun to play alone because it really shines when you have a healer or another Jutland going into the battle with you, so you can get a lot of work done and push for your team. If your team's not behind you, like not pushing when you're pushing, you can honestly look like a fool because you just jumped in the middle of the enemy team. That being said, when you have even just a competent team member, your effectiveness is going to go through the roof. Willis and I love to run dual Jutlands, and we call them the clam hammers. And our whole objective is to make the enemy's tactical cruisers' lives a living hell. And we're very effective at it, especially if we have a suicidal healer following us through. We get a lot of work done, and we're able to just spread teams to the wind whenever their lifeline is cut. I also wanted to say, for the people that are still here, we have hit 100 subscribers, and I'm very excited about it. I was honestly surprised that this many people have actually been watching what I do and like watching my content. So I reached out to Thor, and I got a hold of a couple of GP codes. These codes are for 500 GP each, and I'm going to give y'all a chance at some GPs. So what we're going to do is comment down below telling me what you will do with 500 GP. I will leave the contest open for approximately 1 week. We will announce the winners on Saturday, the 22nd, and I will send out the GP codes to the lucky winners. Thank you so much for watching. I know it's not much, but I wanted to give something back to the community that's been supporting me and watching my stuff. But thanks again, guys, for watching. It's been great. And until next time, keep it classy.